The All About Nothing podcast may have content and language that isn't appropriate for some. Listener discretion is advised. With Zach King, Trent Clark, and Barrett Gruber, this is the All About Nothing podcast. Welcome to the All About Nothing podcast. I am Barrett Gruber, and I am joined this week by Dr. Jamil Brooks. I pronounced that correctly.
You did. Good job.
Fantastic. Also, Bill Kemmler, and we'll get into, Bill, you can say something if you'd like.
Dr. Bill Kemmler, please.
Doctor. Okay. The honorary doctor?
Did he correct that? Did he pronounce that correctly, Bill? Kemmler.
What is the country of origin of Kemmler? I assumed it's somewhere in Europe.
German Austrian.
So Kemmler. Yeah. Okay.
I'll tell you a fun fact. I am the only Kemmler in all of South Carolina.
That is.
Oh, wow.
I checked it out. One of a kind.
I cannot profess to being the only Gruber in South Carolina. But Gruber is also our Grubers came from like Norway or Finland because they were Johanssons over in that northern section of Europe for a little while. But anyway, so I not German. You would have thought German, but not German. This is episode number 180. I'm Barrett Gruber. I'm joined again by Bill.
I'll be honest, y'all just froze on me right now. Is it just me?
It's
It's
just you.
I mean, literally everything is moving around you. So
yeah,
I'm one of them just frozen Zoom attacks.
This is episode number 180. Please consider supporting the show financially by visiting theallaboutnothing.com and becoming an official member, proudly calling yourself a true nothinger. We have a bunch of membership tiers available, including that include early access and exclusive content. Also, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts and you think we're worth it, go ahead and give us a review and 5 stars. And if you're not on Apple Podcasts, please share where you can with your family and friends. Give us a review if you can. Check out our Facebook page. You can follow us Facebook, Twitter, Threads, all of those special things. And with that out of the way, a couple shout-outs. Thanks to James Amick of the South Carolina Paranormal Research and Investigations for being on our show with us last week. I think it was kind of a spooky episode. We enjoyed hearing all about the experiences and documentation and equipment that was used for investigations and what people's experiences were during those investigations, as well as discussing some of our own experiences. Bill, I'm going to come back to you after a little while because Bill apparently had an experience that he was going to share with us. Yeah.
So let me ask you, Barrett, what was the coolest moment about that interview? What part of it stood out to you?
So the group that James is with, I have attempted several times to potentially join their group because we have a small group called Midlands Paranormal Explorers. And we don't do it very often, but we have been given we have been requested at a couple locations to go out and do investigations. Their group has a more consistency to the investigations they do. It sounds like they do them fairly often, whether it's every Saturday or a couple times a month. But the coolest thing about the interview was him acknowledging that, one, he's a skeptic. And his skepticism is what really drives him to do these investigations, because I consider myself a skeptic. I don't necessarily believe that every bump in the dark is paranormally related.
I listened to your show. There were no skeptics in that room.
Which you'd be surprised, right?
You all were just falling over yourselves, talking about, I see a ghost here, I have a ghost there. It was like Ghostbusters, man. There were no skeptics in that room. And I'm sitting there yelling at the phone going, this is just such horse malarkey. It's like, if I was in the room, then y'all would know what a skeptic was.
Yeah.
Well, but my skepticism, it's not that I don't believe that it's possible. I just need proof. So that's why we've done the documenting. Like we've been to a couple locations where we've had some experiences that I couldn't explain. One of the experiences that I talked about with him, I think off the air, I may have talked about it during the recording, but I have a recording of what sounds like a whisper saying my name. I didn't even know I was recording at the time. So that was probably one of my experiences. And my brother and my sister said that they had experiences, and we talked about it on the show. Yeah,
You know what pushed me over the edge in your interview?
What's that?
It was when you started talking about those dumbass e-meters that measure paranormal activity. So let me tell you this. Over the summer, I went to Florida on vacation and brought my kids down from New York. They're in their mid-20s. Flew my mother down from Philadelphia, and the four of us enjoyed the beach. We were on the Gulf.
Okay.
We took a day trip to Pensacola because we wanted to go on a haunted tour.
Okay.
So they advertised that the price was pretty cheap, came with a lunch, was like, why not? We'll kill a couple of hours and have a bite to eat. So we go there, and we were in these 2 or 3 bars along the strip. The bars were beautiful. Yeah. Like, we're talking old architecture, wood, ceilings as high as you can see, huge mounted animals and old-timey pictures everywhere. The bar was gorgeous. And then this lady who was our haunted tour guide basically just walked us around the bars pointing out where the ghosts were because she had all these psychic abilities and she had been interviewed all over the world. She even had a box of these little beeping meters that she gave to us and said, when these things beep, then you know something from the other world is nearby.
She's sitting over there.
They were just random beeping machines, man. They were nothing. They were dumb. She even gave us divining rods to try to find ghosts around with these divining rods. It was absolutely the stupidest 3 hours I've ever spent in my life.
Did you record this? Because I would like to watch it.
I got pictures. We didn't do any video recording, though.
I can't say that would have been the dumbest 3 hours because I have sat through a couple of GOP debates this summer, and those were some of the dumbest minutes.
Yeah, but I was entertained during those. I was not entertained. I was just bored out of my gourd.
That's fair. That's fair as well. Let's see. Big shout out also to Post and Courier's Free Time celebrated their 6th annual Free Times Halloween over the weekend. Special thanks to Lindsay Conine, whom when you see her at the parties, she is working intently to make sure she's not there to enjoy the parties. I mean, she says she is, but she's literally walking around picking up trash off the floor to make sure that it is pristine. The Free Times puts a lot into these parties that they do, and they're open to the public. So next time we announce another one coming up, everyone, please make sure you get tickets because they give us a promotional code to share with people. This last time it was Nothingers, and next time I'm not sure what the next what the next party is coming up, but if we get the opportunity, we'll throw a promo code out there for that as well. But thank you to Lindsay Conine, also Tate White, who also worked on that. We're actually going to have an advertisement coming up in the Columbia Free Times. I believe it's going to be a half-page ad for the podcast, so we're excited to be able to see that coming up also.
Is where my Patreon money is going? Is to pay for these half-page ads?
Yeah.
No. We use we're direct trade out. We mention it, and your advertising is going to pay for my books is what's my. While poor Bill is suffering, he's got it. Oh, good Lord!
I hear you like people wearing masks during the entire podcast.
Well,
I thought about the same.
So I think I'm going to just do this. I hear this is the way you prefer people to do their recording.
That is what gets the best possible audio out of a podcast. That's for certain.
That's right.
Thank you, Bill.
I'm going to be your Trent today.
Oh my gosh!
You're going to have to change political parties for that too.
Hey.
Where's my red hat?
Yeah, exactly.
We're not doing that. That's not an option.
That's right. That's right. Also, big shout out to Brad Shank, John Kosis Jr., Austin Blevins, Nick Spano, and the rest of the Columbia Firefly staff for their season ticket holders World Series kickoff party last week. Had a really good time. Also, want to mention that John Kosis' book is out, and I finally have one in my hands. It's called Play-by-Play from the Minors, Profiles in Baseball Broadcasters from Scranton to Yakima. So if you haven't already, there's links in the show notes for you to be able to purchase that and do that because John spent a lot of time gathering stories from other broadcasters for that book, and we're very excited for him. I'm going to read it soon, and I'm hoping that I can talk John into potentially letting me read a couple of the stories for the audiobook, so we'll see how that goes.
That was a good episode.
Yeah, John.
He was a very interesting. I mean, you wouldn't think minor league baseball would be that riveting of a subject, but he really made it such. It was good stuff.
And John is I'd like to think that John is one of my good friends as well as Bill. And
you'd like to think these things, don't make them true.
I'd like to think it. Tickets are also available for the Fireflies Holiday Lights at Segra Park. More lights this year than last year. Mason Mondays, also Winter Wag-Along Wednesdays, and Kids Eat Free Sundays, all returning this year, as well as Thirsty Thursdays with drink specials on fountain drinks, domestic beer, and cocktails, that sort of thing. More details and tickets available at ColumbiaFireflies.com, so you can check out the link in the show notes. Lastly, New Brooklyn Tavern update for Monday, November 6th and on for a week or so. And I know I'm going to destroy these names, but Wednesday, November 8th, Dakaju, Christworm, and Abacus. Thursday, November 9th, Deer Blanca, Junior Astronomers, and Say Brother. Friday, November 10th, Grady, Spencer, and The Work. Saturday, November 11th, Stardog, Lowercase Gods, MNRVA, and Hellfire 76. You can visit newbrooklyn.tavern.com for tickets and details for these and more shows, or you can check the show notes for links to tickets and details. So, that all out of the way.
And we are out of time. That's it has been a pleasure speaking with you. We have to run.
I thought maybe you had 30 more.
That's right. Apologies to Matt Damon. We ran out of time this week. No. My guests this week are the hosts of the podcast Black, White, and Blue in the South, and after an announcement on their podcast a couple weeks ago, both candidates for their respective districts for the South Carolina State House of Representatives, Democratic candidate for House District 12, Dr. Jamil Brooks, and Democratic candidate for the House District 13, Bill Kemmler. This has been a big year for both of you, right?
To say the least, yeah.
I mean, our listeners got to know Bill during his candidacy a couple years ago, and Dr. Jamil.
Actually, it was just last year.
No, was it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I guess that's right.
March of 2022 and met you guys that summer, so it was just over a year ago.
That's crazy.
It does feel like it was forever ago. I won't blame you for that.
Well, and voting day is technically, because this episode drops on Monday. Here in election day is tomorrow, Tuesday the 7th, right? And I mean, it's not. I don't have anybody to vote for because I don't live in an area that has a county council or a city council or anything like that, and that's all that really seems to be going on. But that's insane. I didn't.
Well, just to be clear, in case anybody's confused, our election's not till next year.
Right. Correct.
Next year.
Yeah. It's not like we signed up last week and now we're up for vote next week.
Yeah, we were sitting on the couch and we thought, hey, what do you have to do? Nothing.
That's right. That's right.
Just go run.
Well, I wasn't surprised to see that Bill was going to run because I think he had mentioned to me. I think you had mentioned to me at one point you were giving it some consideration, but I at that time I don't think that you had decided. I guess, Dr. Jamil, like what made you decide, like how much pressure did Bill put on you to do this?
Actually none. So
that's good.
What most will find strange. So I've always had that bug. I knew that it was going to be something. I'm going to be real transparent. I actually, years ago, the first seat I had my eyes on was the state superintendent.
Oh, okay.
Education. That was a seat I wanted. And I remember I would tell everyone, this is because I didn't know the way to do it.
Yeah.
And I would say, as soon as Molly Spearman's done, I'm getting that seat. Well, I didn't understand how things worked. So then we have what we have there. But so that wasn't it. So that was always a part of what I was going to do. And it's just now is the time.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you mentioned we have what we have.
Correct.
And I'll put a name to that mockery, but it's now I can't think of her name. It's
Ellen Weaver.
That's right, Ellen Weaver.
I was not going to say it.
I'm gonna say it out of existence.
Ellen Weaver, who used our podcast as a smear campaign against Lisa Ellis. And bless Lisa Ellis, because I can't imagine what that was like to quite literally lose an election to someone who is so underqualified. And I think I sort of go back to the idea that here in South Carolina, if you're running down ticket, you really have to have a name that if you're running, especially in a presidential election year or a governor, I mean, it's a complete it's a trade-off. You either get a presidential election year or a governor election year. or it makes it really difficult unless you have somebody up ticket that's going to really push for everybody to pull on the Democratic side, or legitimately go through the ballot and actually vote for the candidates that they have selected. Because
that's what I was going to say, to actually go through the ballot and actually select your candidates.
Well, this Ellen Weaver was like that even before going to the general election. She was primaried. So she had a primary for the Republican nomination against a lady named Kathy Manis.
Right.
And I don't know much about Kathy, but I knew she had years of teaching experience. She was in charge of some sort of education group. She identified as a Republican, but she came across as an experienced educator, not prone to the MAGA extreme far right ideologies.
Yeah.
Ellen attacked her with
Oh,
everything she had. I got mailings that just, boy, if I was Kathy Manis, I would have called her out the schoolyard, and threatened a beat down.
meet me behind the cafeteria at 3:30. Because we have some things
it was some really nasty stuff. And then when Ellen won, there's no doubt that she was just going to use the exact same tactics on the Democratic nominee.
Clearly we absolutely got a preview of exactly how Ellen Weaver runs a I don't necessarily believe that Ellen Weaver had much control over her campaign. That campaign was run by professionals, including the individual that represents me here in the State House. RJ May is a professional campaign manager.
Jamil, you remember that name?
I do.
I played clips of him on our episode. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, Barry, but in order for me to be on a podcast, you have to have this eye rolling sound because I can't control it. And when we start talking about them, that is what's going to happen.
I have this. And
no, that ain't gonna do it.
And then maybe, no, that's not it. I have, it's just, you know what? RJ May, he's a joke.
Okay, got it.
But so RJ May, I don't know what he does as a professional, like how he actually brings in money, except that he's a professional campaign manager. He ran a number of the Republican races here in South Carolina, including part of McMaster's campaign. He ran part of Joe Wilson's campaign. So that's what he does. And then when he's elected and they're during session or even outside of session, all he's doing is running around promoting or pushing for some of the worst of what the Republicans represent right now, including apparently getting lunch on a fairly regular basis with the leaders of the Moms for Liberty or whatever.
We played a clip of him testifying at the Lexridge 5 school board.
Oh yeah,
and he just went on a 3-minute word salad that you sit there and slow it down and analyze it. He made zero sense. Yeah. None of those words matched. He got everything wrong. He was just pulling words out of a bucket and slapping it up on the wall. A whole bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
We literally, over my shoulder in my front yard, he and I almost got into an argument about some of his policies and politics, because at the time when he was running the first time in 2020, he didn't really have a platform except for he loved President Trump. That was his whole platform.
That's enough.
Yeah, which I'd like to think that I at least my neighborhood is fairly diverse. I mean, I live with people of different races and creeds and religions and colors, like all around me. And I would like to think that my neighborhood was probably the holdout as far as like the number of votes that he potentially didn't get. But I think people in my neighborhood still disappointed me. So, Dr. Jamil, congratulations on your candidacy. Bill as well, your candidacy. It's very exciting that you guys are running again. And I have publicly, privately, I have professed that I think Bill is one of the greatest minds as far as what South Carolina Democratic politics has to offer. Because and Bill, don't chime in yet. But when it comes to understanding and knowing a lot of what's going on, Bill, I turn to you for information sometimes.
Yeah. He's a great
Because
resource.
yeah, it's if I don't understand where to stand on something, I can ask Bill, and he'll explain it, not necessarily to sway me one way or the other,
Correct. Yeah.
but Bill will give me the information that I need in order for me to form my own opinion about it, and that way I understand exactly why I don't agree with something or why I do. So Bill, you running again is very exciting, and my hope is that, because I'm hoping that people will be so turned off at the idea that a convicted felon in Donald Trump would be president that maybe they won't just pull a Republican, whatever. They don't pull a lever anymore. It's not that's not the way it does.
Yeah. I think Bill is one of the best kept secrets in Greenwood. So you mentioned some really good points. The fact that he is full of knowledge, and his presentation will be unbiased in such a way that you get to pick the way you feel it is what it is. And I said this when he ran last year. Greenwood missed an opportunity to actually have someone that would show up every day when we were sleeping. This would be a guy who is working his behind off to make sure we're not getting taken advantage of, or to make sure that there is someone there that is sitting at the table with us in mind. We missed that opportunity and we can't do it again. So I was glad, I was watching him saying, I'm waiting. Like, dude, you've got to run again. And so when he announced, I was like, yeah, we ready. We're definitely ready for this.
All right, Bill, now you can chime in.
Okay. All I know is that when it's my time to pass, I want you two doing the eulogy. I'm tapping you two. You got it down. Thank you.
You know what?
Very kind words.
You know what's really awful about that is sometimes in my car I will practice hosting a debate. I will sometimes practice hosting eulogies. I will sometimes practice doing like wedding speeches, just so I can keep up with my ad lib, that sort of thing. The eulogies are really the ones that get really funny.
All right, that's what I want to hear a recording of.
You know what? Next time I'm in the car, I'll just make sure to I'll make sure to record it and send it to you.
All right, so let me turn the tables. I want to talk about Jamil.
Please do.
So this was my experience with Jamil. We only knew each other, maybe this year. I didn't know her last year.
Okay.
She came to one of our breakfast meetings in the Greenwood County Democratic Party, where I'm the chair. She attended one. She approached me afterwards, and she was very delightful, very pleasant. And she says, I was thinking about maybe getting involved, and you were actually asking, hey, you were interested in running for first vice chair of the Greenwood County Democratic Party. And at the time, our current vice chair said he wasn't going to run again. He wanted to step down, older man. And the fact that she came out of the blue and said, I want to fill this seat, I was like, yeah, you bet. So the more we got talking over the next couple of weeks, she also shared that she wanted to run for office. And that just made my eyes do that woo sound.
Yeah.
I was like, that was just phenomenal, because you're always looking.
Not
yeah,
that
thanks.
one.
You're always looking for good, decent people to be on the ballot.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm just writing up a little thing right now about a good democracy requires a choice. Doesn't mean you're always going to win, but boy, when I show up to cast that vote, even if it's with a long shot, I want there to be a name to choose from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, even if it's just a Democratic name, I don't like it. I want a choice. I want to see at least two people and make an election an election.
Yeah.
That's what our country's supposed to be about.
Yes. Oh, you did good with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I agree completely, because one of the things I think that really bugs me about my district is the fact that I know that no one is going to run against RJ May, and Bill and I have talked about this, that I think that the only way to really campaign against some of these Republicans that are so ingrained in their districts and that have represented those districts for as long as they have, or they have as much money as they have available for their elections, is I would almost have to consider running as a Republican, just because that's going to be that's the only way that he could potentially have to spend his money
right
campaign.
Now. So I take exception to that line of thought, and I hear you, and it's a reality that many people talk about in our current environment.
Yeah.
But instead, what if you took a 20-year view, 2 decades view? If you chip away at it every year, these House seats are up every 2 years.
Right.
So let's say, I ran last time and I lost by a huge margin. And you know what? Didn't bother me one bit. and says, I'm going to try it again. And you know what? I'm probably, you know, I may lose by a large margin, but I bet you it's going to be smaller than last time. And got it in my mind. I'm going to run every time. If it takes me 20 years, eventually this guy's going to pass away from old age or get bored and moved on. But by that time, you start to build up that network. You start to build up that reputation. You build that mojo. And as a Democrat, you should be able to win in the long run. It can't roll the same die every time.
Yeah, no, and I don't.
But you mentioned a component that most people don't have, and that's that time component. And then that consistency to continuously push to run, to prepare yourself for the day when that individual is no longer, you know, able to hold that seat or to really function in that seat.
Now
the time component is there.
We spoke with Representative Heather Bauer. She spoke at our banquet a couple of weeks back.
We did.
And she flipped a Republican seat that was held for over 10 years.
Yeah.
That's my emergency.
That was not her first time running.
Yeah.
That was her fourth time running. 4 times, and then she got it. And that's the kind of dedication and long-term vision we need to have.
I said this at our Democratic breakfast. You cannot be afraid to lose. Like, you got to get on the ballot, and you're going to do one or two things. You're going to either get yourself a seat, or you're going to exhaust their campaign funds.
Right.
Whatever. You're going to make their behinds work until they can't work anymore. But you just can't sit on the sidelines and say, "Oh, I wish things would change."
Right.
Like we have a number of people who are eligible candidates for different parts of the offices, and they just keep saying, well, not right now, I'm going to go 2 more years and I'm going to do this, or right now is not the time, I'm going to lose. So what?
Get
that name recognition, jump out there.
It's almost like even if you're just starting out and you know, well, like in my district, and I know I keep using it as an example, but knowing that when it comes to RJ May, him specifically, I know how much money he has available, and I also know that the individual that he ran against last time, which we talked about at your breakfast, Daniel Sharif, RJ May didn't even have to campaign against him because neither one of them really campaigned. But RJ May, this is that. So the reason I talk about potentially running as a Republican isn't necessarily so that I would take office as a Republican, but to primary against RJ May, because I almost, and then I would lose, obviously, but to campaign against him in the primary and then campaign against him and then, you know, and then potentially, because you can be in multiple parties in this state. Am I wrong about that? I think you can.
I don't think you can primary somebody as a Republican and then show up as a Democrat on the ballot.
Well, that's a shame. I guess a right
because you file to run in March.
Yeah.
So that's when you pick your party, and then maybe you have a primary, maybe you don't, but you can't switch midway.
What happened with Lisa Ellis when she showed up it wasn't the primary ballot though.
But she was on the primary,
but not represented by 2 parties.
Right, correct. She was on the Democratic. She was on the Democratic, and then she was nominated because she didn't have to be elected because the what was the independent.
Independent. That was it.
She was under Working Families, wasn't she?
Was it Working Families?
It was something like that. But they don't hold an elective primary. What they have is they come together.
I got it right here.
They just
it was
select
Democratic and Alliance Party.
Alliance Party. That's it. Yeah.
Because Sarah Work also ran under the Alliance Party for the treasurer office, which. Mm-hmm. I don't normally watch a lot of commercials. I normally watch my shows after they've been downloaded or they air or whatever. But watching football games and things like that lately, the number of times that I see our Secretary of Treasury or the Treasurer for South Carolina popping up there, basically campaigning. But he makes it sound like he came up with this savings account for children's education. I know y'all know what I'm talking about. I can't remember what his name is, but like
Curtis Loftus.
That's what it is. That's it. Curtis Loftus.
He's using these commercials basically as a campaign. Like
he is,
and he's not even running this. Like it's a 4-year term on those, I assume, for treasurer. I think so.
Yeah,
but like, I don't need to see the secretary or the Secretary of Treasury or the treasurer for the South Carolina every time that somebody talks. He didn't invent that either. It's been around for years. But I guarantee you, he's using state funding for those advertisements to throw his face and his name out there. And I don't understand why. Well, I do. I know who runs the state, but there's got to be some sort of investigation into how those funds are being used to promote the savings account, but to promote him. He doesn't need to be on screen for that. Anyway, that's one of my gripes.
I agree.
If I'm watching the Philadelphia Eagles, that's the team, right? It's the Eagles, because it wasn't the Phillies. But
Oh, I'm a big Phillies fan whenever they make it to the World Series.
oh, just yeah. Well, how about Texas? How about Texas winning their first World Series last night? Nothing. Yeah, that's what I figured. Honestly, that's what I figured.
I got Cowboys and Eagles playing on Sunday. You tell me that's bigger than the World Series, man.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
bigger
my
than-
gosh. Well, it's bigger than this year's World Series. They said that this was the most underwatched World Series in the last like 15 years.
Wow.
So
I mean, I'm happy for Texas. You know,
Yeah.
everybody deserves a turn to win, and this is their turn. I'm happy for all the lifelong
Yeah.
fans. Good for them. I know what that feels like to win your first championship.
yeah,
So good for them. But really, baseball, just in general, far too long of a season. The games are too long. It's boring. You know what? George Carlin had
he's
all
not
these
wrong.
ideas
He's
for
not
improving baseball. He's like, here's a rule that he would change. If you're hit by the ball, you're out automatically. Doesn't matter. You're trying to run the bases and the first baseman beans you in the head, you're out. You're hit at the plate, you're out. He says that'll make for a more interesting game, and I have to agree.
and you have batters that are literally dodging every pitch.
Oh, he said put random landmines out in the outfield.
Oh my gosh.
That's funny.
All great ideas.
yeah.
I miss George Carlin, man. I
Oh,
miss
yeah.
him terribly.
I would say he went before his time, but I think he was pretty old when he passed as well. So I don't, I will say, Bill, next baseball season, you come down, we'll go to a Fireflies game, and
Well, see,
they
I
put
don't
on a
count.
good, they put on a good
Minor
time.
league baseball doesn't count as baseball.
Sure, yeah, I
'Cause
agree.
that's more entertaining the audience. They put a lot of effort into making sure everybody's engaged.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're not watching those T-shirt cannon people, man, you can lose your head.
You knocked out.
That's
Oh.
right. You can come home headless if you're not paying attention. I love it. That's fun.
They do such an amazing job as well of they have, at least at the Fireflies games, they'll have the some of the staff will run around in those Zorby balls or those Zorb balls and smack into each other for the 3 minutes in between innings, and you're like, there's got to be a concussion or two out there somewhere.
Oh, it's a date, man. I'm there. I haven't seen a Firefly game yet, and I want to go.
They're a good time. So before we're going to take a real quick break, but before we take that break, Dr. Mill, I wanted to ask. So we know about a lot of Bill's background from him being on the show. What are your experiences and as far as what it is that you would bring to the office for District 12 State House?
So in South Carolina, the areas that are most prominent or that need the most attention would be areas of healthcare, education, and just a little bit of the technology background.
Okay.
So what would I bring? I mean, that's over maybe almost 20 years of being in education and in the healthcare realm combined. So what am I going to bring? It's a background full of policies. And it's funny, but my doctorate, which I did not get for education, by the way, the doctorate is in health administration with policies, with emphasis in policies and advocacy. So if it's a policy, I'm checking one thing. So everyone in District 12 might as well know. And I'm putting everybody on alert. I'm reading that policy. Does that policy represent the individuals in 12? And because Bill is going to be beside me, does it represent the individuals in 13? And if it doesn't, then we've got to go back to the drawing board and consider individuals to make sure that it does represent that. From the healthcare standpoint, just making sure background has taught me enough, and I still teach in healthcare to this day at the university level. So it just gives me the opportunity to continue to stay abreast of those policies and to make sure that individuals have access to the services that they need. Don't just throw up these organizations, but can we get people from rural areas to these appointments so that they can maintain and take more accountability of maintaining a healthy life? So we want to work to develop policies that will empower our citizens to be healthier.
Gotcha.
And then education. I'm not budging off of education. And I need everybody to understand that South Carolina placing where it places every year is a complete and utter insult to the educators that work very hard every day. We have some very intelligent educators that pour so much into these children, and I'm one of them in the public school system. And I know that by having a conversation with the educators, we can figure out what it takes to improve South Carolina. And that is the voice that I will be for the educators.
Okay.
You know what else Jamil brings?
What?
She brings a paddle. Look in that background. She's got a Delta Sigma Theta paddle. She's going to be taking that to the State House and whacking people over the head if they're not on board with her plans. I love it.
Hey, we're based. We are going to always have a social action hat put on. So all I know is that everybody's going to have to do right or get left.
Look, I'll just say this. Dr. Jamil and I are about the same age. We're very, very close in age. And I remember when those paddles were actually used. You're not using them. No.
There's
an initiation story somewhere in there, right?
No. This is for her maybe, but this was
no, not for me.
This was absolutely when I was in elementary school in Atlanta. They still used corporal punishment. They'd have to get approval from the parents, but we had corporal punishment. I had a vice principal who had a paddle that was about the same size as the one behind you, but she had her husband drill holes through it for aerodynamics, so that she could get just enough, but yeah. So,
oh wow.
But yeah,
let me go on the record and say if it has those letters on it, it's just for decoration purposes, just to display.
So then that's my last question before the break. What letters are appropriate on a paddle used for corporal punishment?
I don't have an answer to that.
There's SOS.
Yeah, or I was gonna say there's a shop in Amsterdam that absolutely probably has the appropriate letters on a paddle somewhere. All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I think, Bill, did you say that you had a little game you wanted to play with us? Did you put that together?
No.
Okay, that's all right.
Gosh,
that's all right.
Okay.
Well, I do have some topics about recent politics and decisions and things like that. So we will talk about that after the break. This is the All About Nothing podcast. I'm here with Bill Kemmler and Dr. Jamil Brooks. So we'll be right back.
This is Michael Patterson from Nerdy by Nature Productions, and you're listening to Zach, Trent, and Barrett on the All About Nothing podcast.
All right, welcome back to the All About Nothing podcast. I'm here with Dr. Jamil Brooks, who is a candidate for District 12, South Carolina House, as well as Mr. Bill Kemmler. I'm sorry, I can't apply the doctor name to you. Although,
you know what? I have 2 master's degrees, so you can call me Master.
I feel like that is inappropriate in this state.
It actually might win me some votes. Come on,
that
man.
is entirely possible too.
You're right.
So we're here discussing. We've been discussing their candidacy and what we all think between the three of us makes the two of them appropriate to run for state house here in South Carolina, and how well they're going to represent their districts. But of course, if you listen to the podcast, you know that sometimes we come up with some of the current events that are going on. And I guess the first one I want to bring up is the fact that Mike Pence has already dropped out of the running for the Republican nominee for president. Why is that?
Let me first put some context here. I want to put a plug in. Jamil and I have our own podcast.
Well, yeah,
Black, White, Blue in the South. And I know you mentioned it at the top of the hour, but that was like 100 years ago. So I need to refresh everybody's minds. Black, White, Blue in the South, where Jamil and I take between 35 to 50 minutes and we go through a series of topics just like we're about to do here. So tune in for our weekly podcast. Drops every Wednesday morning. We just dropped our 14th episode, and we're very proud of it.
It's really a good show, and it's not one of those shows that you listen to and you're like, all right, am I just listening to it to get through it, or am I listening to it? No, legitimately, it's entertaining. It's informational, and mostly it's informational, but it's delivered in such an entertaining way. And I know a lot of people that listen to it. I think, you were recently announced how many unique listeners have downloaded over the course of the episodes?
Yeah, we did on one. Was that 3 something? We were at 3 something.
You know what? I have no idea if these metrics are any good, if we're just flailing or if we're actually growing. But every week that number seems to go up. So I'll take that as a good sign.
I am going to pull
It's really tough to break through.
Yeah, no, that's a fact. So just to compare, I won't compare it to this show because this show is, no, as far as like individual listeners, all time unique listeners, it looks like almost 400. that's
cool.
over the course of only 14 episodes. I think that's fantastic. I think What the Pod is maybe in the thousands, as far as unique listeners, but that one has a very niche audience.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill. You made a face.
I'm in that niche, man. I love it. It is a niche. It is not for everybody.
No, it is definitely not for everybody. And for some reason, my mother keeps listening. But it is an entertaining show to do. But yeah, I honestly, I think that you all are doing very well. And Bill, your social media presence is on point.
Oh my
Nice.
gosh, really? It is.
Like, I see the stuff that you post and I'm like, man, I wish I had a Bill Kimler to do the social media stuff for our show, because
I wish I had a Bill Kimler to do it because I'm tired.
because I mean, some of your postings, you're going back to like episodes 4 and 5 and 6.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I see, so it's like, how disappointed is your boss at work about how much work you're not getting done? Although,
Listen, let me answer for Bill, because when I tell you structured, this dude is so structured.
I believe it.
Everything has a time and a spot. So he's probably doing more than he should be at work, and then he still has just enough time to jump in. I don't know how he does it, but he is so structured with this.
I don't know if Bill wants
I don't
me.
have it.
I don't know if Bill wants me to say where he worked, but I used to work where he currently works, and I got away with a lot of shit there when I was there.
Did
So
you really? Okay.
Bill's not saying anything.
Next question.
Well, no,
please. Next question.
honestly is that I do have to separate out work from other
Yeah.
activities, and I keep a very fine line between the two,
Yeah.
because I've got multi-million-dollar budgets I'm responsible for. So there isn't an opportunity for me to be lax and get away with stuff. Things need to get done,
Yeah.
otherwise we lose a lot. So,
Yeah.
but Jamil's right. I do keep a very structured life in all of my activities, because I find that if I'm not, then I can't get that stuff done.
Sure.
And I'm always looking for the fastest way to do something.
Yeah.
So you had even asked me, Barrett, if I had a piece of software that I load up all these things in advance and push them out. I don't, because I haven't found one that does it to all the platforms I work with.
Yeah.
But I have a massively awesome Google spreadsheet that I keep track of everything. And
I
literally,
told you.
it's just maybe 10 minutes of copy and paste. And I've just uploaded 10 different things across 10 different social media accounts in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So it really
I
takes no
told you.
time at all.
I am very appreciative of the fact that LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter and Instagram all allow for me to schedule those postings out, because once I
Yeah.
finish an episode, it's fresh in my mind. I know what we talked about, so I can go ahead and create a post and it'll drop at the same time the episode drops. But like, I sometimes, if I want to go back and post something or create a post just to get more numbers out to a particular episode, I won't remember what it was we talked about. And I rarely go back and listen to the episode. So like, somebody will fact check me on something and they'll say, oh, in last week's episode, you said something about something, but that's not really right. You were wrong about that. And I'll just go, yeah, well, thanks for listening.
Well, I don't know about you, Jamil. I listen to each one of our episodes at least 5 times.
Do
Oh
you
no,
really?
And-
not five. Not five.
I mean,
Bill.
part of it's during the editing process, but even after
Oh,
it's
well, you
done,
have to.
I
Yeah.
listen to it multiple times. And you know
Yeah.
what? I still am entertained by it, because you could not have a better podcast partner than this lady right here.
I believe
Yay.
it.
That's the
Bill and
secret. I
Jamil.
mean, she brings out such enthusiasm, such comedy. She is a hilarious woman. She is hilarious.
Very quick.
It's just even the facial expressions alone.
That's,
That's
what
why
gets me.
during our first few episodes, I'm looking at her. I'm like, people are missing out on her face. Me, I'm nothing to look at. But when you see her facial responses, and she's doing a lot of, oh my, whoa, like, oh, just her whole body moves. I was like, I got to get a camera up in this. And so I think around episode
And he
8, put a camera up, put some lighting up, and now we
Yeah.
put it all on camera, because that is just too precious not to share.
I can go back to an episode that Bill was on the phone where he was telling us about how he was doing his GQ modeling or his shirtless modeling, and so I
Well,
know.
hold on. Let's give the context. He's got this partner named Zach. He's my frenemy, and Zach made a comment. And I wasn't even there. Just
No,
out of the blue, I'm
not
listening
even
to
there.
this episode, and Zach says, "Well, if you were to look at Bill, you wouldn't want to vote for him."
Yeah,
I don't even know what point he was trying to make, but out of the blue, he decides to torpedo me with some sort of insult on my look. So that's when I gave a call into an episode later on saying I was at a GQ modeling shoot, posing shirtless.
In Bill's defense, every recording that we do of the podcast, I have to roll my eyes at the number of times that Zach refers to himself as the most handsome individual that's ever existed in his entire life. And that's also counting, I guess, apparently Zeus or
oh my goodness,
Hippocrates, or I don't even know if that was an individual. Socrates. I assume he compares himself to Socrates when it comes to Shakespeare's humor. Maybe, I don't know.
wow.
Big ego, huge ego. There's not the studio's not big enough for it. But yeah. So yeah, I was gonna bring up, and that's not even to talk about Trent's ego. When you get the two of them in a room together, it's no anyway. So the first thing I want to discuss, Mike Pence has already dropped out of the.
Oh yeah,
and
Yeah.
is that because you think he hasn't raised the money and he hasn't gotten enough I guess he hasn't gotten enough individual donors to support himself being in any potential future debates? I mean, it seems early to drop out of a presidential election, considering we haven't had a single primary. Nobody.
Well, here's the thing with the president. It's not so much a contest to see who would be the best leader, but it's a contest to see who's the most popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the sad thing is it's a personality contest at this phase. Two things I want in a president is I want charisma and I want skill set. I want leadership skills. I want the both.
Yeah.
We had that in Barack Obama. I mean, this guy was just a magical unicorn that was dynamic, and the guy was smart, and he was an effective leader. Donald Trump was charismatic, at least many people thought he was. He has no leadership skills. He's got no talent, nothing whatsoever, and the country was a disaster for 4 years. Joe Biden, I think, has the leadership skills. He's not the Barack Obama charisma guy. He never will be. He's got kind of a hokey charm to him, and he just doesn't, and that's why his poll numbers aren't so good, because he just does not exude the charisma that needs to go along with how effective his administration has been. Mike Pence had neither of those.
Yeah.
This guy couldn't lead, and he has no personality whatsoever, so it's no surprise to me he was one of the first to drop out.
Yeah, that's fair.
So let me ask, do you think that maybe the Republicans are saying we better try to get the House together, get things in order a lot sooner than later, because we might have a battle on our hands? And so maybe somebody's doing some shoulder tapping saying, I think it's time for you to remove yourself. You're a slight distraction, and you remove yourself. I thought it was interesting, like Asa Hutchinson, he didn't pay to end up on the ballot in South Carolina, and he had the funds to do so, but he just didn't.
That's interesting.
So I'm wondering.
Yeah, nobody tapped Mike Pence on the shoulder other than the bankers saying, dude, you're out of money. Buddy, pay up. And he had no money, so he had no choice but to drop out. If he had the funds, he would still be in it, because he's delusional, thinking that he's the guy, even though he only draws 20, 30 people at an appearance.
He's tainted because he was with Trump. He was tainted from the beginning. That was a bad idea. That relationship tainted him.
Well, he was tainted because he was A, with Trump, and B, not with Trump.
Yeah.
So he got hate from both sides of the spectrum.
Exactly.
I feel like if Mike Pence had not, well, because he was governor of Indiana, correct? Did he just come off of being the governor? I knew he was in Congress at one point, but I don't know. At some point in there, he was hosting a radio show, and not a very popular radio show.
Yeah, I would expect.
It was the hype of South Bend, I think. But with Mike Pence dropping out, I see if Mike Pence had not been selected and taken on the role of the vice president candidate for the Trump campaign, I feel pretty certain that there's a possibility that Trump may have been a president that was elected without a vice president, because it sounded like, just based on some of the things I read of the whole the attempts to find someone to run with Trump, there really at the time there wasn't anyone that wanted to do it. Now, Mike Pence again had some success as a representative for the state of Indiana, and I want to say I think he was governor. I can't remember exactly.
To be honest, Barrett, we're talking about Mike Pence for longer than his campaign lasted, so maybe we move to the next topic.
Fair enough. Okay. Mike Johnson, currently the Speaker of the House, he's an odd unicorn for
he is shaking some stuff up.
Yeah, he is an odd unicorn for the Republican Party.
Yes.
On one hand, he is fundamentally Trump in his beliefs and how he has represented himself, but he's been really quiet in some sense, because I think for the most part, when all of a sudden it wasn't Jordan and it wasn't Scalise, and it almost seemed like they may fall back and go ahead and just elect McCarthy back into office or into the speakership. But out of nowhere, it was like, oh, well, here's Mike Johnson. He's a fundamentalist Christian who believes that abortion starts 2 or 3 weeks, or abortion shouldn't be available to anybody even 2 or 3 weeks before conception. He has his own list of books that should be banned in schools. Apparently, he wants to reverse gay weddings or homosexual marriages.
Yeah, he does.
He believes in what is it, the electroshock therapy that could potentially
conversion therapy.
Conversion therapy. Yeah. Well,
his wife actually ran, I think, a conversion therapy center, or was affiliated with one.
He represents so much of what
Mike Johnson was the "we give up" candidate.
Yeah.
Because remember, this was like 21 days of Congress doing nothing. Yeah. And those Republicans were just getting the living crap beat out of them by the nation, by the media, by everybody, and rightfully so. And they just gave up. And I bet you if he was one of the first on the ballots, in this first week, he wouldn't have gotten any votes and he would have had to withdrawn. But by the third week, by the 21st, 22nd day, they were just tired. And there was like, all right, whatever, dude. They all signed right on board. Nobody knew who he was.
Yeah.
So he was the "we give up, we throw in the towel" candidate. Let's move on. And hopefully people will forget that we shut down government for 3 weeks while we figured our stuff out.
I'm hoping no one forgets that. And here's my biggest problem with Mike Johnson. Well, this isn't the biggest problem, but this is the biggest problem that sounds the funniest. He represents a district in Louisiana, but he doesn't have a Louisiana accent. But I guess that kind of is par for the course, because Scalise, also from Louisiana, doesn't sound like someone to me from Louisiana. But then you've also got John Kennedy, who doesn't sound like somebody from Louisiana. It sounds like somebody from Oxbow, Mississippi. Isn't that where Forrest Gump was from? I can't remember. But of course, I guess Kennedy didn't sound like that before he moved down to Louisiana, right? He's in Louisiana. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, Mike Johnson, I think is the poster child for what the Republicans want people to see and think. But I have to believe that this is another situation that isn't going to work out well, because some of his most extreme views are not aligned at all with what 70 to 75% of the majority of Americans believe. Most Americans believe that there should be a right to abortion, despite the fact that you've got these fundamentalist white Christians out there that are all, life begins at conception.
And let me ask, Jamil, could you pick Mike Johnson out of a lineup?
That's a good question.
If you had a bunch of white guys with glasses and ties, could you pick out Mike Johnson?
No, he's typical. He does not stand out. And I think
he is just so bland.
Yeah, I think that's the goal. Is like, get somebody we can just put here and hopefully he can be a puppet and they pull strings, but clearly
this is what I do. So Mike Johnson was elected Speaker of the House. If you're watching on YouTube, this is funnier. So Mike Johnson was elected to the House, and if you don't know who Mike Johnson is, you're wrong. This isn't it either. It's actually this guy right here. No, That's one of those John Oliver, Stephen Colbert skits where they put up, this isn't Mozambique, but But you wouldn't know because he's basically you could take any stock photo out of a frame being sold at JCPenney.
Really, and that's him. That could be him.
Because
You're right.
You know how I know he was the I give up candidate? You just take a look at Nancy Mace. Right. So Nancy Mace was one of the few that voted to kick Kevin McCarthy out.
Right.
To the shock of many. And the reason she gave was, well, Kevin McCarthy promised to help with legislation for some women's rights, more rape kits, less focus on abortion. She was, all pro-woman, and she says that was important to her. And then she goes around and says, I'm perfectly okay with this guy, Mike Johnson, who's, happier in the Handmaid's Tale world than in the real world.
Yes.
And supports him. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. She is just a typical talking out both sides of her mouth politician. She has no stance. She's got more flip-flops than Lindsey Graham does.
Nancy Mace was on The Daily Show this week with Charlamagne the God, and I was dumbfounded, one, that she went on The Daily Show. I don't understand, when it was Trevor Noah and Jon Stewart, Republicans would go on there because they thought they had the ability to debate somebody of their caliber, and they didn't. But when the Daily Show brings on these guest hosts because they haven't selected a host yet, and I don't know that you'll ever find anyone as good as Trevor Noah and Jon Stewart for that type of show, but even Charlamagne the God was he flat out asked her. He said, because she was up there saying about how the election that Joe Biden, there was so much mounting evidence against the Joe Biden crime syndicate, which to me is just absurd. This idea that Joe Biden or his family have some sort of background in mafia type programs. They're running some sort of a waste management facility out of
my God.
Philadelphia or New Jersey. Sorry to mention Philadelphia again. But it's just this idea that Joe Biden would be capable of doing something like that. I don't see it.
And meanwhile, Nancy Mace flew up to New York to stand in front of Trump Tower, which I believe is owned by the state of New York now because of his criminal behavior.
It's pretty close to be.
Absolutely nuts.
Does Trump?
I don't get him.
Does Trump own that? I mean, does the Trump family or the Trump Enterprises or whatever their business conglomerate is called, but do they actually own Trump Tower, or is it just that he's leased his name on the building?
You're asking me an area of expertise that I could care less about. So I honestly don't know.
That's fair. But yeah, no, Nancy Mace. At one point, while I didn't give her much respect, I lost a lot of respect because when Charlamagne asked her specifically, what about Trump? What about all the evidence against Trump? And she's like, what evidence? And he said, yeah. And he said, well, any one of the 91 indictment counts against him. And she said, well, which indictment? And he was like, Georgia. She goes, I haven't seen the evidence. We all saw the evidence. We've heard the phone calls. We've already had, 3 of his own lawyers have already said that they would turn evidence against him if it got them off the hook. So
listen, the Republican Party needs to do away with that elephant as their little favorite animal and replace it with an ostrich, because they do nothing but stick their heads in the sand and pretend like this stuff doesn't happen or it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
But I always say that party is the king of distractions. They will, create the biggest puff of smoke. So while you're not looking, they're behind the scenes coming up with something else. Yeah. And that's all this is. She's saying what evidence? Lady, pick any piece of it. She can bump into a piece of evidence right now and see that Trump is guilty.
See, and I've always operated without discretion as far as if Biden is guilty of something and he's indicted for charges, that means that a jury a grand jury has looked at evidence and said, yes, we believe that there was a crime committed and that there is enough evidence here to support a conviction.
Yeah.
I believe that if Biden or Hunter Biden had done anything more than carry a gun when he wasn't supposed to, then
which is half of South Carolina, by the way.
Right.
Bill, I was going to yell that out, but then I thought, do I want water now or not? But yeah, that's everybody.
I am absolutely dumbfounded by the number of people that are not going to support the Republicans, that will not support Hunter Biden's right to carry a firearm.
And that's all they saying.
Right. It is absolutely insane to me that they won't support Hunter Biden and his right to carry a firearm. Like,
because
right.
it's not really Hunter Biden. It is Joe Biden.
Right.
And anything that we can do to dismantle whatever he has taken a stance for or whatever he's attempting to build. So Hunter just happens to be in the way.
Yeah.
Listen, if I had known it was open season on Sons of Presidents, man, we really should have done in Donald Trump Jr. when we had the chance. But you know what? The Democrats are like, no, family's off limits. We're going after the guy himself.
We try to
we
do
should
it right.
we learn our lesson.
Well,
learn our lesson. But that guy should not be walking around free right now for something.
Let me ask you both, as far as how do you feel about how the Democrats wind up attacking members of their own party when their own party has done things that have been are considered unethical?
Give an example.
So
Yeah,
Senator from that used to be on Saturday Night Live was out of Minnesota. The comedian.
So you know about Al Franken.
Al Franken, yeah. So in that situation, Al Franken did not have due process. He was not convicted of a crime. He wasn't actually even accused by or accused by an alleger or a victim that he had done something wrong. That simply it was a picture that was posted of him pretending to grope someone that was in full Kevlar, full body armor, who was asleep in the plane that he was flying over for a USO tour.
It's a different world, Barrett. I mean, the guy came out of the world of comedy. So
Yeah.
if he's going to have some inappropriate humor photos floating around out there, that should have been the least shocking thing. But you're right. Back then we had standards, and Al Franken didn't get kicked out. He resigned.
Right.
It came with pressure. He didn't have to resign. He could still be the senator right now if he had stuck to his guns. But he was like, you know what, for the good of the party, and he was going to be the better man, he stepped aside.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I think that was more of him leading that. And I'm not going to say he probably didn't hear from members. I'm sure that he heard from some of his colleagues that said this would be the best thing to do, but he could have stayed.
Oh, well.
So let's talk about an actual criminal in the Democratic Party.
Yes.
You got Senator Menendez out in New Jersey. This is the guy that's got gold bars tucked away in his coat pockets in his closet.
He says he's not leaving because he's innocent.
He literally Googled or asked someone how much a gold bullion from Saudi Arabia or whatever, like, or Egypt, how much was a kilo of gold bullion from Egypt was worth.
Yeah,
I got no patience for that type of goofiness.
I don't either. So like that's one that I'm sure there's something else.
Here's another one. Who was that representative, the congressman who pulled the fire alarm in that building?
So
yes. So what was the story on that?
Explain exactly what happened, because I know that there was a vote, and did he pull the fire alarm to give himself more time to make it to the floor to vote?
What was his explanation?
All right, so his name is Jamal Bowman.
Yeah.
I had to quickly look it up because I really didn't know him from a hole in the ground. But he was in another building, and there was voting going on for some sort of budget CR resolutions, and
yes,
it was a very tense time. But he was in another building away from where the votes were taking place. He pulls the alarm. He claims he was thinking he was opening doors, or that was like an emergency release handle. He was all levels of confused. And you know what? I actually bought that story for a bit when it came out that this building was nowhere near the vote. I'm like, okay, so then what purpose does it serve to pull the alarm? Maybe it was an accident.
Yeah.
But then last week, additional camera footage came out that showed him taking signs off the door that says, closed or emergency only. I don't even know what the signs are. But he pulled the signs off the door, then turned around and pulled the alarm. It's like, what is that nonsense? He has got to go. We don't have time for that type of silliness in the house.
He knew that was wrong. That was wrong. I mean, listen, he wouldn't be the first that went and didn't cast a vote. I mean, we see that a lot. So you could have just missed that.
I mean,
but meanwhile, it's tough to stand your ground when you've got the other party who's entertaining MTG and Lauren Boebert, who's groping each other in the theater. And who's that other guy who's fake? The fake congressman from New York. What's his name?
You're talking about Santos.
Santos, George Santos. Yeah, they're sitting there fully entertaining him. So I don't know why we should be all holier than thou,
right,
and do the right thing when obviously the other party has stopped giving a crap ages ago.
I think that was essentially my point, was that we've moved past the age where we hold politicians to a higher regard than we would. We hold them. We don't hold these politicians anymore to a level of ethics that we would say, a religious leader or something. Well, I can't use religious leaders because a lot of them are more fallible than,
Well, good thing we hold Jamil up to a higher standard. She's an angel.
Not.
In fact, we can see her closet. There's no skeletons in it.
Listen, I wanted to say about Santos, I don't know if y'all saw the article that came out recently where it talked about 31 Democrats joined the 182 Republicans to keep Santos in place.
I don't get that.
And I'm thinking to myself, what are we doing here? Nothing about that seems right.
Right.
But that came out from the Hill.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. I'm under the impression that when you make it to the level of being in the Senate or in Congress, in the House of Representatives, that you are basically, especially House of Representatives, because it's the same as essentially what you would do here in South Carolina if you're in the House. You are running every 2 years, which means basically you are elected and then you are almost forced to start running for the next campaign.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to you both would be, what is your opinion on term limits? And then second to that, what length of term do you think would be appropriate for Congress as far as House of Representatives? Because right now it's 2 years. That doesn't seem, my opinion is, it doesn't seem like that's really enough to get anything done without the thoughts of how is this going to impact my campaign that literally starts next month.
Yeah. So I'll tell you this. I do think that 2 years, you've really got to go in. If you're going to go in, you've really got to go in with a plan. You have to have met with your constituents and know exactly, and studied the data of your district to know exactly what the needs of the people are. And you've got to go in ready to work. Like, you can't go in and just sit there, because those 2 years will be gone before you know it. Now, if you're an individual that's communicated the plan and it's very visible that you have been actively working to pursue the goals that will benefit your constituents, then you can be productive in those 2 years. So nothing tells you to go in there and hold your hands. Some people are very productive. Some people are not. So I think that's about your time and what you do with that time. And the other thing to consider is, in the House, you can be productive not just by creating your own bill, but by co-ing with someone. If you co-sign with someone, there's a bill that's there. So there are things that you can do to represent your individuals, your constituents, and have a good presence there. 2 years, I think you're right. When you go in there in 2 years, and as soon as you're in, you're learning the House, and the next thing you know, you're running again. Well, the running should come natural. So even though you're running, you should still be able to focus on what's going on in the House, because you've already ran. So that part's going to come natural, but that will take time. What do I think about term limits? I'm actually for term limits. And here's what I would like to see on the Democratic side of things. I would like to see more Democrats train their replacement.
Oh, okay.
And here's why I say, this is why I say I'm for term limits. And I don't think the term limit has to do anything with your age. Let me just put that out there, because what we're not going to do is age shame or do age discrimination. I'm not going to do that. But if you're able to function and meet the duties that are assigned to you, regardless of your age, then go right ahead. But I think the term limit comes in because if you know that this is your final term, or this is your final 2 years if you're a senator, or this is your final year if you are a House of Representative, I think it would be really good for you to have already trained your replacement, so that when you go to turn the mantle over to who it is that you're going to support in this race, since it won't be you, you're not throwing them out there with no type of support. And you're also not leaving your constituents left with who's going to babysit us now? Like, who's going to watch us when, our parents are at home?
Sure.
Like, who is going to take care of us? So I support the term limits only to ensure that as Democrats, we don't just leave our constituents hanging. We transfer that responsibility. Kind of like, I look at it like in a work scenario. I once resigned in January from a company, and I worked until December. training my replacement. Could have left. I didn't leave because I knew the goal of the company. I was bought into the company. I really took the time to leave so I could finish my doctorate. And so it went well. It doesn't go well.
Sounds to me like you're just terrible at resigning.
No, I needed to go. And then they said, hey, are you going to go? I'm like, yeah, I got to go now. But, train your replacement, because whatever you were passionate enough about in the first place to run, you should still have that same passion when it's time for you to move out of the way.
Yeah. Jamil, I'll just say this. When I left my last job, I wrote up documentation literally on the tiniest, just as much possible information as I could for the person that was taking my place. Because at one point they were talking about hiring somebody to take my place, and I was like, well, that doesn't leave any time for me to give any sort of training. So obviously the guy that worked under me prior to my departure, he was the most appropriate for me to hand that off. I literally gave them folders and folders of written technical documents on how I performed my job to the nth degree, only for after my departure for them to go, this guy's not worth a shit. We're glad he's gone. It's like,
but
wow.
that's a reflection of them. That is not a reflection of like how cool you are. You did what you were supposed to do.
Right.
And that's what we've got to understand, that while we are there, when it's our turn to serve, we have to serve like we can't serve anywhere else. Like, this is our last opportunity to serve. And then when we leave, regardless of what they think, we know that we've done what we were established to do.
All right, I'm going to take an opposing view. I am not in favor of term limits until the Supreme Court gets term limits first.
Oh,
I
most
don't
definitely.
like lifetime appointments.
I
don't
that.
like it. So you've got to have, let's make it 18 years, I think was the proposal that's on the table. And 18 years is a long time.
Sure.
It's 3 Senate cycles, but after 18, you're forced out, and then whoever's president then has to appoint somebody new and go through the process again. I don't believe in lifetime appointments for a role like that, because you end up with people like Clarence Thomas, who just feels he's above God's law at this point and does whatever he wants.
You've got Roberts. Roberts has only been in there for what? He's been in there for less than 2 decades, correct? I mean, was he a Bush appointment? And he's the chief,
right? I don't know.
But like you now have these Supreme Court justices that the whole idea behind the 3-tier or the three-piece system, legislative, judicial, and executive, is that there is a check and balance to the whole thing. Mm-hmm. We literally have Supreme Court justices that ignore subpoenas from Congress.
Yeah.
I mean, during something just recently, where I think the Senate was trying to investigate some of the information that they were getting about the Clarence Thomas stuff and things like that with his donors and whatnot. They basically just say, no, we're not going to show up. And to me, you're now in contempt of Congress. Why isn't there some sort why isn't someone going after them? And why aren't the Capitol Police now pulling in justices in handcuffs and saying, no, you can't be in contempt of Congress. They told you to be here.
This is a good debate we had, Bill, where we talked about them not wanting an ethics committee to investigate them. And I'm trying to think which judge it was that pretty much just gave the finger and said, you don't have the Constitution doesn't have anybody in there that can.
Oh, you got that's Samuel Alito.
I was going to say.
There you go.
Yep.
There you go.
I was going to say that either sounds like Alito or one of Trump's the first one that Trump got in there after he got elected. Yeah. But yeah, to me, I'm dumbfounded by this idea that we have representation. Jim Jordan has not responded at all to the subpoena for the January 6th Commission.
Yeah, we did a whole segment on Jim Jordan. I learned a lot about that guy.
He is, for a guy.
Do you have any South Carolina topics we can riff on?
Yeah,
we've been hitting national stage.
I was gonna say
I want to take it local.
South Carolina, none that I can think. Well, let's see. We did Nancy Mace and her terrible appearance on the Daily Show. But no, I know we're going to be going. They're going to be going back into session. Starting into January?
Beginning of
January.
After the New Year. Yep.
I suspect that we're going to hear more about the lack of need for any sort of gun laws, because I know that there are Democrats that are already saying that are in the House that are going to be pushing for, or not in the House, in the Senate, they're going to be pushing for more stringent gun laws, because we're still seeing gun violence in South Carolina continues to rise. And I don't have the number in front of me, but I know in South Carolina, our gun violence is now eclipsing the national statistics as far
What did
as,
we say,
as
Bill? Were we number 5? Is that what you reported? We were number 5.
When it comes to mass shootings,
yeah,
we were number 5 in the nation. Now, you probably don't even think that, because we don't have, the big school shootings like we hear around. But a mass shooting is anything where there's multiple people shot. They don't actually have to have passed away.
right.
Multiple people shot. It happens all the time in South Carolina.
Yeah.
We have the 5th highest rate. And these people that say, well, you get all these liberal cities with these Democrat-run mayors and crime is rampant. Dude, take a look in your own backyard. Number 5 in the nation for mass shooting rates.
And I keep saying this, it's not like we're in gun smoke. So there's going to have to be some structure. Okay. And so just to have, we're not saying, and I'm not saying, eliminate guns. That's not what I'm saying.
No,
but
of course
I am
not.
saying put regulations in place to protect innocent people, which is what we should want to do.
Yeah, ultimately, I think that there are definitely people in our country or in the world that probably should be considered less safe when they own a firearm.
So Barrett, here's my platform, and I'm not going to deal with a specific topic, but in general, we have to wake up in this state and realize we have legitimate problems to face, and are we as elected leaders of this state going to address those problems directly? So, for example, being number 5 in the nation for mass shootings. But people say, well, the guns aren't the problem, it's stolen guns. Those are the issues. Well, guess what? South Carolina is number 4 in the nation when it comes to stolen guns. We're number 4. So how about we as a legislative body, a General Assembly, not worry about saving women's sports, which was the stupidest name for a piece of law that I've ever heard. There was no sport that needed saving. There's no numbers out there that support that they were in danger. Stupid. A lot of work went in that. Why don't we tackle something to deal with the stolen firearms? Why don't we put some packages together to enforce safety training, enforce lock boxes, get certified? Nope. Instead, they're cutting it down, cutting it down. And the problem is just going to get worse.
Bill. You don't need certification. That's what they would believe.
So
but you got to have it for everything else.
I want to tackle are real issues of poverty, health, accessibility, education, as Jamil very eloquently talked about earlier. There are real problems we should be dealing with, and instead they spend more than half their time on this extreme right nonsense where they make up a problem and then run with it for years.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example of that. So, and I said this, and I don't like to, you're going to learn, Barrett. There, some people, I don't call their names because I kind of think like Beetlejuice. I don't want them to appear. So I try my best. And if you listen to Bill and I, it's very, I might say the people that I am referencing, or I might say this individual, or
I'm always guessing who she's talking about.
Yeah, because if you say it 3 times and they pop out, we got problems. Okay.
I'm going to get her to say Candyman in front of a mirror 5 times.
Not happening.
Bloody Mary.
That's our next episode.
I think about, the group that is in leading these book bans.
Right.
All of the passion, all of the aggression and the assertiveness that's put towards book bans because they want to make sure that they can save the children. Yet we have school shootings occurring around us like it's nothing. So can we redirect that energy to something that's a real problem? Here's what I would like to say. I would much rather my child have the opportunity to check out a book and bring it home so that we can have a discussion about what's in it than for them not to come home at all because they were involved in a school shooting.
Yeah.
Our focus and our priorities is screwed up here.
One of the things that I was dumbfounded by was a list of the school, in Lexington County 1, School District 1, there was a list of the books that the Moms for Liberty or whomever wanted to ban in South Carolina, Lexington 1, which actually then turned into a whole fiasco where they got lawyers involved. They were going to fire teachers that weren't going to, whatever. The list was a list of school book or a list of books that were available at the high school. that ultimately they were trying to ban these books from the elementary school. So above middle school, these books would have still been allowed because it wasn't that they were inappropriate for middle schoolers or high schoolers, but they were using this list of available books and saying that these were books that needed to be banned from the elementary school. So there was actually no actionable anything there that was going to occur. It was mostly just they wanted to get out in front of a camera, and the news organizations wound up reporting on it because they made it sound as though elementary school kids were being subjected to books that were way outside their reading level. But then when you did the investigation into it, it was like, oh, wait, these books aren't even available at the elementary school library. And
waste of time.
Most of them aren't even in the middle school library. They're only available to high school students.
Listen, they banned in Arkansas, they pulled a book or flagged it for removal because the author's last name was Gay.
I saw that.
That was her name, Gay, G-A-Y, and it got flagged for removal. That's how idiotic they've gotten with this.
Well, and then meanwhile, they're using the South Carolina is trying to use the same tactics that they use in Texas, where they literally will bring these pallet boxes in, and they'll go through, and any book that they look at and the cover looks potentially offensive for a child to read, they just throw it at, like, I'm dumb. They don't even know what the context of these books are, and yet they're making a judgment on something.
So I'm going to say,
crazy.
so this is what I need for people to do. And you're absolutely right. It's ludicrous. A couple of things. One of the things I would like for people to do is, if you are going to be this strict on what a child could potentially read, because here's the catch. Ain't nobody running in the library saying, here, you take this book home and you take it right now.
Right.
That's not how that's going down. You have a skilled person who has a master's in library science. Okay, look, that's not an easy degree. So you are credentialed in this field and you select books. And a lot of times it comes from like the top booksellers, like the young adult authors that are, things that are reflective. And sometimes children look to escape. They look to learn. They look to learn how to advocate for themselves through books.
Right.
So to have someone who's on the outside saying, hey, this is it. How about parents have a conversation with your child if it's that big of a problem?
Jamil and I we had a whole discussion about one children's book called Antango Makes Three.
Yeah.
Oh my God, those dang penguins.
Yeah.
Those dang blang penguins. Two cute little male penguins based on a true story at a New York State zoo. Formed a pair bond, and the zookeeper decided to give them an egg to hatch and raise, which they did, and they formed a little family unit. See, when these people say, well, how do you allow pornography in these children's libraries? And they'll point to that book as an example. Two male penguins raising a baby penguin as pornography. And that's where I just don't have tolerance for these conversations.
Well, I'm just checking, and I don't know these people, so I'm just going to say I'm asking for a friend. I'm not asking for myself because I really don't even care what they think. But here's what I'm asking for a friend. If they own books like this, are they checking to see what television shows and series and Netflix series that their children are binge watching?
Probably not.
Have they checked their scroll history, their log history? Do they see what sites they're in and out of? Do they see who they're following on TikTok? Do they see who they're following on Instagram? I need people to busy themselves with some stuff that really matters. That's not it.
I'm gonna make this observation. I'm guessing that the generational gap between the people that are the most offended by what they think is going on and the people that are actually being offended or affected by what is in the schools is so far apart. I mean, that's like McMaster's having anything to do with public school education.
No, Barrett, I disagree with you. I watched the school board meeting in your district there, and it was parent after parent.
That's true.
Younger than you.
I know.
That were up there being a whole bunch of Karens. It was a Karen parade.
Yeah.
And they were just up there just going absolutely bonkers, saying the dumbest things.
But
I couldn't believe it. I was like, really? You were born in the 80s? You were born in the 90s? And you're talking like this?
And I guarantee you, every one of them watched Friends, or watched Seinfeld, or they watched these television programs that were prolifically popular during their adolescence, and how they converted themselves into what they are now. These individuals But no, but the legislators, the ones that are actually have some sort of impact or have the ability to cast a vote that's going to impact them, the generational gap between what it is that they represent and the people that the children that it's going to affect is, to me, it's dumbfounding. I mean, McMaster's has this idea that students in South Carolina are being taught incorrectly, or they're being taught the wrong values, and it's like, public education isn't designed to teach anyone.
Would he want us to teach the values where he want to hunt down the Democrats like with dogs? Is
right.
that the values he wants us to teach? Because my thing is, I'm going to need for him to refrain from involving himself in that conversation as well, because you can't say what values each household has to teach. Who doesn't know ethics and morals? Those are your values.
Right.
Those are your cultural beliefs and how you were raised. That is what you impart on the children that you raise. So I'm telling you, you better keep your eye on what is happening, because when they start to, and I'm speaking primarily for anyone who's supporting book bans, and we want to, even the superintendent of education is saying she wants the state to determine what books are going to be read. Has she lost her mind?
Jamil, I want to point out something you said earlier, because we're falling into the trap. Like you said, this is a distraction.
Yeah.
We just spent 20 minutes talking about it, but we weren't talking about low test scores. We weren't talking about students, in poor, underfunded schools, teachers who still are below the national average in salary, even with all the raises they got. We get distracted and we fall down this rabbit hole, and they end up winning.
Thank you for saving me. Thank you for pulling me out, because I was.
You said it. I just used the rope you threw out there.
Well, surprise guest, Karen Weaver's here with us, so we can. No. And if you thought that was Karen Weaver, it wasn't. This is Karen Weaver. Okay, sorry.
Karen Weaver.
No, because
Ellen Weaver, Karen Weaver, whatever. No, you're absolutely right, because that essentially distracts from what the actual issues are, which are the students in South Carolina. First of all, as an educator, I would just like to ask your opinion. Standardized testing, is it a valued source of applied, or is it a valued application to the education of the children, South Carolina or beyond?
In my opinion, Dr. Jamil Brooks, the answer is no.
Okay.
I think that standardized testing is a distraction. I mean, districts have to do what they have to do in order to present the numbers and get the funding that they need.
Sure.
So I get that. But in terms of, is this a true picture of what we're dealing with? I don't think that it is. And in a state where we say that we want to be college and career ready, a standardized test does not necessarily get a student there.
Yeah. No, I agree.
We have to pick. I think it's a waste of time. I teach in a CATE program. So for me, I'm not on the standardized testing portion as much as some of the other programs are, but I do teach a computer science class that you can get AP credit for.
Okay.
But and I can tell you that if you're looking at the other standardized tests, I'm gonna go. I don't know if y'all know this or not, but I'm Black. And it's important for me. I'm sorry, Garrett. But
I'm out of here.
I'm sorry, but I need to tell you this so you'll understand. If y'all can't tell, I'm Black. And so here's what I have witnessed. And there's plenty of stats out there, and there's the research out there that prove it. Typically, African-American students overall will test lower on the standardized questions because those questions aren't written to appeal to the African-American population. That's a big issue. So if you're going to tell me that standardized testing determines if I'm going to be successful or not, write the test for me.
Right.
Write the test in a way that it appeals and I can relate to the questions and be able to answer them appropriately. So I don't think we can use standardized testing because it's not for all.
Right.
Everything Jamil said is 100% true. I don't know, Jamil, if you knew this about me, but you knew I used to teach as well back in the Stone Age. But I bet you didn't know that I spent almost 10 years with a company called the Princeton Review teaching standardized test prep classes. So I started in college and then went all the way through for another 10 years. I taught SAT prep, GRE prep, MCATs, LSATs, and GMATs. So I was trained to teach them all, and I took the LSAT for law school. I got a perfect score. Does that mean that I was going to be a good lawyer or have a chance in hell at a law school? No. It meant that I knew how to beat that test. And the fact that my 6-week course that I was part of could raise their scores by 100-200 points, I didn't make any of them smarter. I didn't impart grand knowledge on them, but I did train them how to take this test and look for those keywords and look for the secrets and tips and tricks. Yeah. Totally beatable. And for that reason alone, they found in a study, I can't, this is what I was told, so I didn't see the study myself. They said that there was a higher correlation between your blood type and your success in college than your SAT and your success in college.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we were told. And you know what? I believe it.
I think there was even a debate a couple of years ago about removing the SAT or the ACT, one of the two, from the entry-level requirements because like the credibility associated with that particular test on whether the student was going to be successful or not had been jeopardized. It was damaged. Like there was no direct correlation. So we're looking like take the test. And then you had schools at one point saying, we don't want it. Just come on, let me see what you got. Let me see your transcript.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Well, Bill, I've invited your old boss at the Princeton Review. Did you know that Bill was... Sorry. And if you thought that was Bill's boss, it wasn't. It was this guy.
We are not going to do this, okay? Both of y'all. Put the mask away.
Well, listen, this has been a really terrific conversation. I think we definitely need to continue it into another episode very soon because...
Well, this was just the warm-up. You're not recording, are you?
He is recorded, and we are done.
Oh, crap. I got to go back and think about what I just said.
No, this... listen, this is... I am so glad that I was able to get you both on the show because it's... like I said before, it's your show, Black, White, and Blue in the South, is... extremely informational, but it's done in such an entertaining way. And between the two of you, it's such a good rapport that you both have together. And if anyone's listening that hasn't listened to it before, you have to check it out. It's Black, White, Blue in the South. Black, White, and Blue. Sorry.
You got it.
Black, White, and Blue in the South. And it's available across all the podcast platforms. Both Bill and Dr. Jamil are running for House seats here in South Carolina. I assume your donation pages are all up and ready to go. You're taking your...
Yeah, I'm going to give you our Linktree links that'll direct you to all of our social medias and accounts and all that stuff.
Yeah, as well.
So I encourage you to follow us so you can hear and see what we're like beyond just this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, we do take a lot of issues seriously. I do have a favor to ask of you, though, Barrett.
Please, ask away.
At the end of your podcast, The All About Nothing, which is how I found you.
Oh no! Yeah,
you have your trailer bumpers where you list out all of the podcasts in your media empire.
I know.
And Jamil and I are last. We're last.
Yeah,
we're at the back of the bus. DJ Lanza has not had a damn episode in 15 years, so I don't know why he gets preference ahead of us.
Alphabetically, since we've talked about education, Black with B comes first.
That's right.
So
Trent,
we want to get that up.
Trent, what they're saying is you need to record an episode, or else you're getting bumped to the back of the back of the
Put him in the back of the bus.
If you thought this, this isn't Trent. But yeah, no. Plus, I actually need to go back and record that because I definitely used the Bill pronunciation of your name.
No, you didn't. You made up your own pronunciation. You didn't even go close. I called her Jamel forever. Jamel.
What
Forever.
is it that I'm saying?
You're calling her Jamile. I mean, you put like some sort of French twist on it. Dr. Jamile Brooks. And you're like Italian.
I think it was Siri once before was like Jumalee, and I was like, wait, we're drawing a line here somewhere.
That's a pronunciation too far. And
in fact, what I expect is that when I say it correct now, and I think I'm getting better, I actually expect like a little good job, Bill. Good job, Bill. I need that positive reinforcement.
I say that.
No. I'm not getting it enough. I want more of that.
Wow.
I say your name right. I say Jamil. You say good job, Bill.
Good job,
Never forget how entitled white people are.
You see it? It's there. It's there.
No, not entitled. No. Needy as F. There's a difference. I don't feel entitled to it, but I need it.
That's great. All right. Thank you both for being on the show with me.
You're welcome.
It's been terrific.
5 hours is what it's been.
This has been one of our longest podcasts in the last while. Probably because I'm not confined to the potential of being charged more for rental. So that works out very well. All right. again, check out the show. It's Black, White, and Blue in the South, available across all of the podcasts, including YouTube now. So you can, if you're the type of person that watches podcasts on YouTube, which, by the way, the whole Google podcasting is going to be going away. It's all going to be converted over to YouTube. So YouTube Music is where it'll be. And actually, I know several people whose podcasts are more popular on YouTube Music than they are on Apple.
Wow.
So, you know, make sure you're subscribed somewhere, because you want to know when these episodes come out. All right.
That's right.
I am going to go through my ending spiel so that you guys can laugh at me as I stumble across.
Let's see what we can do to drag this out even longer.
That'll work. All right. That is going to do it for episode number 180 of the All About Nothing podcast. Thank you very much, Dr. Jameel Brooks. Thank you very much, Bill Kimmler, for being on the show with us. Links to all of our past episodes, podcast platforms, and merchandise and social media are available on our website, theallaboutnothing.com. If you think our financial model of giving away free content and entertainment is silly and you're in the giving mood, why not become an official Nothinger to support the show? Visit theallaboutnothing.com and become an official Nothinger, just like Mr. Bill Kimmler here. You'll find a support link near the top of the page. You can subscribe monthly at a varying level of membership tiers, or you can click on the tips link and even drop us a one-time donation. If you want to, you can join in the conversation as well. You can join our Discord channel by clicking on the banner at the top of the webpage. Please subscribe to the show. Link to all of our Facebook, Twitter, and all other social media is available on our website. Please share all this with your family and friends. Thank you very much for listening. And Bill and Dr. Jameel, I will let you all give a tagline for the end, because what I say is, you all stay safe. And then what would you all like to say to everyone?
So my tagline to all of my students is, go be great.
That's good. Bill?
My tagline is, super fantastic.
Thanks for listening, everybody. The All About Nothing podcast is produced and engineered by me, Barrett Gruber. Thanks to Cake for our intro music, Sick of You. You can follow everything Cake the band at cakemusic.com. Thanks to Muff the producer for our outro music. You can follow Muff on Instagram at Muff the producer. Thanks to Trent Clark, aka DJ Lonzo. Join him weekly at the venue in Columbia, South Carolina for the Saturday All-Star Drag Brunch and Sundays at the Review Drag Brunch. You can also contact Trent for all your entertainment needs. Trent at theallaboutnothing.com and on Instagram at TheRealDJLonzo. You can also phone him, 803-262-7982. Thanks to Zach King. You can follow him on Instagram at KingZach07 and on Twitter at CarolinaKing21. I am Barrett Gruber. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Barrett Gruber, or visit my Linktree/Barrett Gruber. Want to support the show? Visit our webpage, theallaboutnothing.com, and become a member. There are several tiers available, including memberships that give you early access to episodes as well as exclusive content. Visit theallaboutnothing.com. To find links to our social media, merchandise, and past episodes, visit theallaboutnothing.com. If you'd like to be heard on the show, you can call and leave us a message. Dial 803-672-0533. If the time between these episodes is more than you can handle, check out our partner podcast. Zach and I host What the Pod Was That with Carrie Simmons. Visit whatthepodwasthat.com for links and details. Me takes a deep dive down the rabbit hole in episodes of Welcome to Wonderland. Available on all the podcast platforms. Visit WTWLpod.com for details. Check out DJ Lonzo's Top 5, available on all of the podcast platforms. As well, you can listen to the political and social conversation between Dr. Jamela Brooks and Bill Kimmler on Black, White, and Blue in the South, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe and share this show. If you're on YouTube, please like and hit the notification bell. Thank you for listening. The preceding podcast is a product of Big Media and copyright 2023, all rights reserved.